The Creative Challenge Fund is a brand new fund from us, the Filmmaking Fund, and it is also lottery, as all of the funds that we offer are. And the aim is to reinvigorate and stimulate the creative lab and project development space, and also to decentralise feature and feature length and immersive project development. It's complementary to the project development offer that we already have, and that is a rolling fund where you can apply to us for project development. So this is on top of that, and to complement the work that goes through that, and as well as work that perhaps doesn't, and we'll get into that later. This is the very first round, so the point of it being called a challenge fund is that we will set challenges for each round, and we'll get into what the specific challenge is for this round later. And so this is across 3 years between now and March 2026. There'll be 5 rounds, and all of these will be we will poll industry, and it will also be based on our own experience of where we're seeing gaps. And the way that we are making decisions will be guided by the Filmmaking Fund priorities, as all of our decisions are. So that is specifically around equity, diversity, inclusion, and particularly people from underrepresented groups within the filmmaking space. Impact and audience, so the public impact is still incredibly important, is always incredibly important to us. Talent development and career progression, particularly writers, directors and producers being the focus for these funds. Risk, both creative and commercial, UK-wide, and environmental sustainability, which may be relating to editorial and the story, and also in terms of practice. Next slide, please, and over to James.
Thanks very much, Mia. So yeah, next slide. Some key facts about the Creative Challenge Fund. What is it? As Mia said, there's going to be 1 challenge per round, and there'll be 5 rounds overall between now and 2026. So that means 5 different challenges. With this first round, we're planning to fund up to 8 different development programs. It is a bumper round because it's the only one we're running in this financial year. After that, we're likely to fund less programs in each round. And overall, we're looking at funding about 24 programs across the 5 rounds. So our current expectation, it might go up or down. We're looking for organisations to apply to us that can run creative development programs. Applicants can apply for between £12,000 and £150,000 per programme. So there's quite a range there, and it's intended to allow flexibility. So that might mean some small programmes apply to us that are quite short term. They might be specific to one area or stemming out from a single venue, like a comedy club or theatre, right up to larger scale UK-wide, longer term programmes with a bigger cohort at the 150k end of the spectrum. We'll ensure with this fund that all of the programme participants, so people who are taking part in a programme supported by the Creative Challenge Fund, are paid for their time, and we'll go into that a little bit more later. We know that even when programs are free of charge for participants, that can still present a barrier to participation, because time spent on a program can mean time not spent doing paid work that's needed to keep afloat. So we are requiring all programs to pay participants for their time. Will be an allocation for time that people spend on the program to support their attendance. It's not a payment for the creation of delivering materials. So the Creative Challenge Fund isn't a development fund where a funder is paying for materials to be delivered and is taking rights in those materials. There aren't any rights being taken here. And in our guidelines, we go into some detail on this. The payment would be an allocation per person of a minimum of £110 per day. Organisations can choose to increase that if they want to, up to a maximum cap of £5,000 per person. And that upper cap would only be reached by a very substantial programme. So at the £110 day rate, that'd be 45 days of engagement. And in terms of length of programme, they can have a duration of up to 1 year. So they could be really short and focused, much shorter than that, or long term in sessions across a year. Applicants can discuss with us if they want to make a case for running a programme that's longer than 1 year. So do contact us ahead of making an application if that applies to you. Each challenge that we're going to run through this fund will address an aspect of need within the industry. And so no one challenge will do everything or suit all potential applicants. The first challenge, which we'll hear about in a moment, is quite a broad one. And we expect that other challenges might focus on specific areas of underrepresentation and so be more targeted. The aim across the 3 years of the fund is for us to support an ecosystem of programs that take in a wide variety of different development activity. Next slide, please.
So the first challenge is designed to stimulate new genre-focused projects. And this is particularly around the fact that we see only 53%, 53% of applications to us, so not just projects that we fund, but actually in terms of application, identify as drama. And this also came through in our consultation, a perception that actually genre is deprioritized, and actually we wanted to make a very specific case to stimulate however you may define genre work, and we're looking forward to hearing from people who may want to drill down into a specific aspect of genre. So this is particularly around maximising the chance of projects securing further financing from a range of sources, which could be public or could be private or could other sources. And programs are need to be designed to support filmmakers who are working on their first, second or third features. The point is not to duplicate the great work that our colleagues at BFI Network do. So this is beyond early career stage. BFI Network offer early development fund, and so the projects need to be beyond that stage. And the point is that the programs need to fill gaps in provision following on from that kind of talent development work already supported by the BFI. And we expect our organisations running labs to ensure that it's clear to participants that this is also not about increasing your chances as whether or not the BFI Development Fund may support you. The point is to be able to widen out and give you a good start so that you perhaps can not just come to us, but also seek support elsewhere. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Mia. So who are we looking to apply to the Creative Challenge Fund? We're looking for legally constituted organisations that are centrally managed in the UK. So that means not individuals, limited companies, community interest companies, local authorities, charities and trusts, those sorts of organisations. There is the centrally managed in the UK bit there. If you're part of an international operation and you're not sure if you're eligible, do get in touch with us before you apply. We're looking for screen organisations that have previously run similar programmes. Organisations don't have to be solely working in the screen space. They might work in different fields of arts as well, but they need to have experience of working with filmmakers. And we recognise that there are sometimes newly formed organisations that have staff who are experienced at running these sorts of programmes. So that's fine, they can apply to us as long as they can demonstrate that experience within their existing staff. Production companies can absolutely apply, provided they're not developing a slate of existing projects. So all of the organisations that we fund to deliver programmes will need to run an open call that would include projects and filmmakers that are new to them. They won't be able to use Creative Challenge Fund money to develop a slate of projects and filmmakers that are already on their books. We have previously run slate development programmes at the BFI, but the Challenge Fund is doing something different, and we'll work with organisations to ensure their call-outs for participants are transparent and get advertised widely. We're also very keen on applications from exhibition-focused organisations, so that would include venues and festivals, and we recognise that there is a lot of expertise in project development held in the exhibition sector, often at a regional level, and it can be hard to fund. So the Creative Challenge Fund might give organisations the chance to increase the ambition of their development activity. We're also welcoming collaborations between different organisations, and we've heard some really encouraging ideas coming forward already in this area, with the idea that this could bolster the expertise involved in the project. And it might be that it's a larger organisation that collaborates with more community-rooted organisations. That could be particularly useful where that large organisation has got an infrastructure for managing funds or the ability to leverage third-party funding. And then smaller organisations might have more expertise in working with specific communities or have a different form of development practice they could bring to the table. With these sorts of collaborations, we'd look for equitable relationships between the organisations involved, and a close collaboration that avoids an extractive hierarchy. And that would include acknowledging within the budgets that come into us as part of applications, the time and expertise contribution of any smaller partners. And we've got a couple of focus areas as well in terms of the applications that we're seeking. We're particularly encouraging applications from organisations that are based outside London and the South East, and organisations led by staff that are currently underrepresented in the film industry. So these focus areas are guided by the principles in our 10-year strategy. Mia mentioned a couple of them earlier, UK-wide and equity, diversity and inclusion. It doesn't mean we're in any way precluding organisations from London and the South East, for example, but we're interested in applications from the other regions to help address industry imbalances. Next slide, please.
So the proposed programmes focusing on genre outside of drama and its subgenres, such as coming of age or romantic drama. So there must be, the labs and programmes must be designed to develop projects in the following formats. So fiction, live action and or animation, documentary, which is obviously harder to define perhaps within the genre space, but we're open to you making a case around that. And again, live action and or animation or hybrid in the documentary sphere. Narrative immersive screen work, by which we mean work that has a particular clear story arc that still qualifies as immersive or XR or VR. Programs can be covering multiple forms where feasible, or can concentrate on one, but by which we mean they could be documentary or fiction specific or immersive specific. But proposals that focus on form alone, i.e. immersive labs that don't have a genre focus, will not be considered. The projects do need to be capable of gaining British certification. So that means obviously led by creatives who are UK. That doesn't necessarily mean UK stories, and you can find out what we mean by that in the guidelines or through British certification on the BFI website. Organisations can budget for the cost of their time. Obviously, it's incredibly important that whoever is running these programmes gets paid, and that overhead can be included, but the overall activity needs to not be for profit. And we can't support the development of television projects because all our work is specifically around film and feature length at that, except immersive. We have said that each lab should support 10 projects, just to be clear on this. And if you have a case for a more focused lab working with a smaller number than this, please make a case and we'll definitely consider it. And I think that's everything on that slide. Over to James.
Thanks, Mia. So these, I'm just going to run through some points that we'll look for successful applicants to build into their delivery. We'll ask people to incorporate standard filmmaker and project eligibility criteria into their programme design. There are headlines of that criteria in the guidelines, and it's in order that we can ensure there's a useful parity across the different programmes we support, so that filmmakers are participating on similar terms, regardless of which programme they're on. Organisations will need to issue that open call for applications that I mentioned earlier, and include writers, directors and producers where teams have all of those roles attached. So we anticipate that many programmes will work with projects where there are a writer and producer attached. If there are projects that have a separate director on board too, we'd expect programmes to accommodate all three of the roles in the development process. As mentioned, programmes need to be free of charge for participants, and then participants will get the allocation for their time as well. And we'll look for organisations to work collaboratively with us at the BFI Filmmaking Fund. So that will include work on the lead up for the call for participants. We might join the selection process with organisations as they choose the participants on their programme. And then we might also agree with you a way for us to participate in the programme itself. We'll ask organisations to collect diversity and monitoring data on applicants and participants in their programme, and we'll give people a framework for that. And also ask organisations to ensure robust safeguarding and wellbeing provision on programmes. So if you want to make an application for this fund, you'll see we'll ask you for policy information around those areas. We'll then work with successful organisations on how they will put that policy into practice to ensure there is a safe environment for participants on the programmes. particularly with programs that involve things like overnight stays, travel, hospitality. There are risks to consider when running a program, as many people will know. And for this reason, Creative Challenge Fund money can't be used for the purchase of alcohol. So when you make an application, we'll ask you to put in a risk register, and we'd like you to consider issues around safeguarding and well-being as the start of that conversation with us. We'll also look for you to take action on environmental sustainability, and we'll provide some resources to support people in this. We have 2 sustainability partners at the BFI who are working across our current strategy. One of them is BAFTA Albert, who are working with us on inspiration on how to include content on sustainable production. So that'd be something people could look to build into their programs. And then also, as Mia mentioned at the top of the presentation, editorial approaches on how to acknowledge the climate and biodiversity crisis in content. And that's a growing area within BAFTA Albert's work. And secondly, we have Julie's Bicycle, who work with us on other types of sustainable delivery. And for this fund, that would be how to run your program in a low impact way in relation to the environment. And finally, we'll ask organisations to consider how they will measure the success of their programme. One side of that will be working with an evaluator that we'll appoint, a third party, who'll evaluate the whole of the fund. But then we'd like organisations to tell us too what their vision of success will be for their programme, including how they might want to track outcomes for talent. Next slide, please.
So as we mentioned at the top, we've received quite a few questions so far, so we thought we would answer them publicly, because quite a lot of questions may be coming up for several people. So the first, James, you're going to answer: are organisations who already receive BFI support from other funds eligible?
Answer is yes, they are. You can absolutely apply if you're already receiving funds from us from a different fund. We'd look for you to show the distinction between what you want to do with the Creative Challenge Fund and any work that's already being supported.
Second question I'll take, which is: can a programme have a specific focus, like being specific to one region or centred around one area of underrepresentation, which could be protected characteristics, for instance? And the answer is yes, we are absolutely open to programmes that have a very clear focus. If it's geographical, we'd expect the programme to have a regional footprint when it comes to outreach rather than one specific town or city. We would need to see a rationale. What is the need being met with that programme? And as with all our funding, any measures taken to address underrepresentation must comply with the Equality Act of 2010.
Next question: are existing programmes okay to apply? So would a programme that's run before but has lost its funding be eligible, or has it got to be totally new? So existing programmes can apply. One of the pieces of thinking that led into this fund being created is our knowledge that there are some significant programmes out there that have lost funding from elsewhere and that are looking for other forms of support. That said, all applications would need to address the specifics of this fund, including the genre focus of this first challenge. So we would need to see how the programme had evolved to meet the requirements of Creative Challenge Fund. If there are well-funded programmes out there that are seeking a contribution from the Creative Challenge Fund for ongoing activity, so they already have perhaps quite a substantial budget, they're less likely to be prioritised when we go through the applications we receive.
Any areas that should be avoided? Yes, there are a few. Short film work for which there are provisions through BFI Network and other projects, except where immersive, where we're talking about immersive. Early development for debuts, we would ask that instead the provision of the Early Development Fund in England or BFI Network partners in Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales are your go-tos. Debuts need to be further along in terms of having attracted partners, other collaborators, or other finance or attachments, e.g. cast, etc. Seed funding and screenplay fees, as James elaborated, in terms of what participant fees should cover. So we're not expecting that people are writing screenplays unless that's sort of self-elected. Not buying equipment, that doesn't count, and also not solely market-focused projects. This is around creative practice and project development. market activity can be supported. So we would love to see programs that do have an aspect of perhaps financing, expertise, sales agency, international focus, UK distribution, audience input, etc. But we don't want just programs that focus only on that. Also TV, as we said before, we just can't support television, and also production costs would be ineligible. We'll elaborate on what can count shortly.
And I'll do that right now. So yeah, what sort of activity can the programs include? There's a list of these in the guidelines, and people can also look beyond that list and propose other things. But I'll pick out a few of the elements that we've talked about so far. So script sessions, including script editors, dramaturgs, etc. People can include those in their programs. Also costs of mentoring and shadowing for participants. Read-throughs and work with actors. Test shoots and creative experimentation involving filming. There's an important caveat there that the fund doesn't support pilots. It doesn't support work that's intended to be used in a final production. It will support filming work that is part of creative development practice. Also, as Mia just suggested, market and audience focused sessions can be included, bringing in expert advice, and that could include consideration of international markets and audiences as well. We can support travel and accommodation costs for participants and staff. In almost all cases, we expect that to be in the UK. Organisations can, though, propose an element of international activity if there's a strong case for this as part of the wider programme. We'll review it one by one when people put this forward. We will be applying our environmental principle when we look at that, particularly when considering any proposed plane travel. And there would need to be significant project and career benefits to the trip. A very short trip would be unlikely to kind of meet that grade. And we'll be ensuring we're not crossing over with activity that the BFI International Fund supports and our partnership with the British Council. So in summary, the activity that we're looking for people to put forward encompasses project development and extends creative practice for filmmakers.
And lastly, before we open up to your questions, I can see a few coming in. When will the next challenge be announced? We expect to publish the next challenge and open the next round of funding in spring 2024. So I think now we'll open up to questions. James, are you seeing any on your question function?
I'm not. I can see about 16 questions have come in. I think they were going to be filtered through to us, weren't they? But they're not at the moment. So maybe we should just work down the list.
Okay, let's do that. Oh, here we go. They are being filtered. Right. So first one, you say that production companies who have an existing slate cannot apply, but what if they wish to stick to the brief of the fund and only support projects and filmmakers that are new to them without using any of the fund on their own slate of projects? Should they still not apply? No, that's absolutely, you can have an existing slate. It's just making sure that there's a balance. So you absolutely can apply if the focus is for projects and filmmakers who are new to you. That's great. We were just saying that there could be a blend. So there could be a halfway between both of those. James, do you want to take the next one?
Sure. Are universities able to apply? Would they have to be listed as a partner in an application from an existing production company? Have a look at our guidelines. We've got some more detail on the type of organisation that can apply, but it should be fine. We can accept applications from universities across a range of different funds that we run here.
Ooh. Sorry, I can't see the next one. Okay. Can you please say more about production companies not being able to have a slate of projects in development? I understand that projects can't develop their own project, but is it correct they can't have a slate of projects in development at all? No, I think we just answered that production companies absolutely can apply. You know, you could have a separate slate that you're working on, and it may be that this program is about is about stimulating people who aren't known to you and perhaps putting some people who are known to you on it. James, do you want to take the next one?
Yeah. Would you be happy for the scheme to receive additional funding or match funding from third parties in the UK and or overseas? Yes, absolutely. In our funding guidelines, we've got a kind of tiered criteria for the amount of additional funding we expect people to bring in, or we hope that they would. And it's geared towards our understanding that for small organisations, it can be hard to raise additional funding. It can be hard for any organisation to raise additional funding. So have a look at that. For small organisations with below 10 employees, there's no requirement to bring in additional funding. And then there's a graduated one as organisations get bigger. So yeah, absolutely. If people can raise additional funding, please propose it. We always have a look at the source of that funding and any terms that might come with it. So that would be a consideration. But yeah, do put that through in your application to us.
If this course is primarily about supporting the development of projects, but not early development because that's supported by network, at what stage in development should they be? Where are we drawing the line? So it's more about, if you're talking about a debut, then we would expect that project to just be further along and have more support, as I said, defined by perhaps it could be a director is attached, you've done multiple drafts, there's a full draft of the script, etc., and perhaps some other support and other funding. If it's a second or third feature, it could still be early stage. So we're only just making that distinction around the debuts, just so that we're not doubling up. So hopefully that's clarified. James, do you have anything to add on that, or is that, I think that's probably quite clear.
I think that's clear. Yeah, the Early Development Fund is for first-time feature makers, and it supports treatment stage work. So that's the very definite bit that should not be overlapped with. But it doesn't support second-time features, third features. So you're kind of in the clear if you're working with that stage of career. Okay, for charities and smaller organisations, what qualifies as a credit for participants? Does that have to mean broadcasted credits? I'm not sure I understand that question.
I think I might, James. So I think if we're talking about the credits, the experience of the applicants to this fund, we would mean that you demonstrate a track record, or that the people who are attached to the program are as mentors and script editors, etc., that they have a clear demonstrable track record. If you're talking about the participants to attract, then that criteria is somewhat open to you. So you could have a very specific pitch that is around people who are coming in from theatre and have no credits yet, but you could be demonstrating that perhaps they're further along, that the focus of your programme is specific to developing theatre talent, for instance, or comedic talent. Or you can have a very clear point around developing people who have broadcast credits but no feature film credits yet. So in a way, that's sort of open to you to propose. James, would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. Thanks. I'll take the next one. Are there any guidelines or restrictions for virtual delivery? We've left it open to applicants to decide what works for the programme they want to propose in relation to in-person delivery, virtual delivery, or a blend. So that's absolutely up to you.
Should programmes be open to all genres, or could it be a specific genre, i.e. comedy or horror? Absolutely can be specific or open, it's up to you, or you could pick a couple that are complementary to each other. That's completely fine. Okay, I understand programmes will be about both supporting the development of the projects selected and the professional development of the individual filmmakers more generally. But where should we put our focus, project or people? So it is a fund that's intended to support project development.
and that should be a core component of any program that's seeking support. We hope that that can be rounded out with wider professional development and career development support. So it should be a mix, but the project development needs to be at the core of each program.
Yeah, I would, just to reiterate, the point is that these programs are not about training, they're about creative practice, and just as James said, just reinforcing project development. Obviously, within that, you could also frame this as continued professional development. All these opportunities are always like, as someone who's run a lot of labs and workshops, there's always incredible benefit of professional development within them, but that's not the focus. Is there any guidance as to what kind of rates we can charge per day for our own time in developing and running the labs? I think that would be more dictated by your own day rates. And James, we don't have any other minimums or maximums in our guidelines, do we?
No, not for the rates that people charge for their running of the lab. We have got some percentages in our guidelines around the amount of overhead people can take. So do have a look at that. That's overhead for the wider organisational costs that are involved in your delivery of the programme. But yeah, in terms of day rates, we look for it to be led by your previous work and what you would usually charge. How important is previous experience in running labs? So we do require that anyone applying does have previous experience in running creative development programmes within the screen sector. We recognise some people might have done work in other parts of the arts sector, particularly theatre or writing for other media, and we definitely see that as relevant, but we'd look for organisations to have some experience working with filmmakers previously. So we are looking for that track record as a piece of the eligibility criteria for the fund. As mentioned, it doesn't have to be, if you're a new organisation, you don't have to have already done it as that organisation, but your staff need to have that experience.
James, does that also pick up the next question? Can newly formed limited companies apply, or does the company need to have traded for a minimum amount of time prior to applying?
Yeah, it's related, isn't it? Newly formed companies can absolutely apply. So there's not a minimum amount of time prior to applying. We have a production finance team who look at this side of our assessment process of company structure, etc. So they would have a look at your company when you applied, but absolutely, yeah, you can apply.
Can attendance to conferences, festivals for participants be included within the budget? Yes, where you make a clear case as to the benefits to that project, particularly. As James said, we would also want you to think about the impact of international travel and whether or not in person is absolutely essential. And in terms of conferences, it would need to be, yeah, again, whether or not that could be a co-production conference, perhaps that would demonstrate that actually it is furthering that project on. James, anything to add on that?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah, great.
Okay. Just looking for the next question, which I can't see coming up. Can you see a new one, Mia?
No, not yet.
Just going to scan through and make sure it hasn't popped up somewhere else. Okay, there is one here that we haven't answered. Should immersive works be character driven? You've covered that slightly earlier, Mia, haven't you, in terms of mentioning that story is the key focus, that there needs to be a narrative. We're not looking for programs that would support immersive work that's solely experiential without kind of narrative elements, story elements, character elements. Anything else to say there? No,
don't think so.
Great. And related to that, are there any duration requirements for immersive XR work? They tend to be a lot shorter than features. Yeah, it's an area where it's hard to set a kind of boundary because of how immersive works. So for that reason, there aren't duration requirements for a program that is looking to work with immersive practitioners in terms of the projects that would come in.
Are you seeing anything that we haven't answered yet, James?
Let's have a look through.
Inclusion targets, are these for applicants only or also consultants? Yeah, they're for both. who makes up your delivery team, and as well as the expertise, as well as the applicants across the piece.
Yeah, and we've put inclusion targets in our guidelines, which are particularly for the makeup of the participants in programs. So we'll look at it across the board. When we've chosen our 8 programs, we'd hope to meet those targets, and then across the 3 years as well. But as Mia said, yeah, particularly important that there is representation within the consultants, the contributors who come in to work with participants as well. Okay, here's another one. Hi, does the lead contact region question refer to the lead contact's personal address region, or does it refer to the company's location? So usually with a lead contact, you're asked to put in an address that's associated with the person, but that would be a business address. And what we would look at here is where the company is based. So should someone be based in a different region to the company that they're working for, where the company is that we're interested in?
James, are you seeing anything new?
Not at the moment. Let's have a look.
Can script consultants, script editors get a credit for the projects they worked on? Yeah, I would say the usual industry standard applies.
Yeah,
so absolutely. Yeah.
We've got a bit of guidance in our guidelines about what sort of credits that the organisations running the programs can take. We're quite clear that the organisations can't take rights in the work that's coming into programs. They also can't require EP credits. If they go on to later on pick up a project, like separately to it going through the Creative Challenge Fund programme, that would happen on usual terms, and that stuff would be negotiated as an entirely separate thing. But yeah, we'll work with organisations that we fund on how the support of the Creative Challenge Fund and the organisation involved in delivering it gets credited.
Question from Karen Hoggerty. For documentary features, does the BFI have a view on genre categories distinctly identifiable within another genre category? And can you give us some examples, as the BFI does in the guidelines for drama? We might need to expand on that a bit, James. Do you think we should maybe come back to that? Actually, we should probably we can give you a steer that's very specific to documentary.
Yeah, like you've said earlier, it's more complex. We're very aware of that, and there are evident groupings within the doc space. Like you could look at sort of climate docs, for example. I would see that as a genre within documentary space. But yeah, we could do a bit more work on helping people out with that. So perhaps we'll put something on the Challenge Fund webpage about it after this.
Yeah, or if applicants just make a very specific case, if that's your focus and you're very, very geared around documentary, just put that in your application, because we would be happy to look at your interpretation rather than impose interpretations on you.
Absolutely. Okay, is there a safeguarding and wellbeing framework available for small organisations to use to develop one to run this scheme? So we have anti-bullying, anti-racism and anti-harassment guidelines at the BFI, which are on our webpage, which were originally created for use on productions, but can very much be adapted for other contexts. And we also have a code of conduct that we use when we're running things like trips abroad for participants on them. So that's the latter thing isn't publicly available, but we would share that with organisations who were running programs if they didn't have their own, but they wanted to look at ours for inspiration. And otherwise, yeah, do have a look on the BFI website at the resources I mentioned.
You don't expect labs to pay writers for their screenplays, i.e. to option them, but could the labs include writing time, 3 to 6 months to work on a project they develop within the lab, same as schemes such as for screenwriters? Absolutely, that would be up to you to make a case for that. We're not intending that people are kind of writing for free, so that's why we wanted to make that particular point around that there is not a deliverable as far as we're concerned. But obviously, if people opt in and they're not actually being supported elsewhere, then that, in a way, that's up to the lab and the participant writer to decide. James, would you have anything to add on that?
No, I think that's it. Thanks. Kind of related question. Can you please elaborate on what can be funded? You said that final production cannot be funded. Can you confirm if any filming or editing costs can be supported through this fund? Thanks for this question. It's a really key one. So what we're not able to do through Creative Challenge Fund is fund the production costs, including things like editing, of individual projects, because it's a creative development program. It's not supporting production phase work. So we could support an editor coming in and working with participants to share skills, share insight, etc. There might be sort of test editing sessions that could be done, but the key distinction is that those aren't creating materials that end up in a final finished production, that's not the intention. And we also won't be supporting programs that are including things like filmmaking production challenges, or that are geared around a group of people making a feature together, for example. That wouldn't be eligible.
Question from Emma Clark. Hello, Emma. If we are offering a scheme to help later in the drafting phase, how will we find these projects teams? If I created a framework to help, then how do I reach potential participants? So we would ask that that's via an open call. And so there are frameworks advised within the guidelines, I believe, in terms of what we mean by an open call, James.
Yeah, I mean, we ask for people to put in an outreach and marketing plan when they apply to us. So we're looking for you to propose how you would reach those potential participants. We expect that there's already been a lot of interest in the Creative Challenge Fund. There's a lot of attention on the programs that will come out of it. So I think there's already a profile attached to the programs when they make their call outs. If you're looking for guidance on how to best promote the individual program, that's also something we could look at having conversations about with the organizations that we're funding. So yeah, I think especially if you have an established presence in either the screen space or a wider art space, as we've mentioned, we don't anticipate generally with any of the opportunities we put out there that people struggle to fill places.
Yeah. Annabelle, thank you for your question. If we have run a successful pilot training program that we are seeking a partner to convert to the genre focus, can BFI connect with potential partners? James, am I right in saying that we would ask that you find that the partners are linked before you apply? You could be the lead app, and then the partner could be the person helping you be very specific to genre. We're not intending to do any kind of matchmaking, are we? We've not built that into this project.
That's right, yeah, because I mean there are a lot of organizations interested in this opportunity. We're not doing a formal bringing people together or matchmaking, so we are looking for people to make those approaches themselves.
Question from Mena Fombo. All participants need to be paid, so e.g. 10 projects with a producer and director and writer attached, you would look to pay each team member a day rate. Yes, that's right. So everyone would need to be paid through each project and program. Everyone would need to be paid the same. Yeah. So the day rate should just apply to everyone. There shouldn't be a quotable day rate. Everyone there should just be parity. If a fee has been decided by the lab instigator, then everybody who's on the lab should just be paid the same. Yeah.
Okay, next one. The guidance state that programs should take in a minimum of 10 projects, each being represented by one or more individuals. How do you define 10 projects and the term represented by one or more individuals? So 10 projects is 10 discrete film projects or immersive projects, and 10 separate ideas. And represented by one or more individuals, that means that at the least each project would have a writer bringing the project into the program. They might be a writer director, and they might be accompanied by a producer as well. So that's sort of between 1 and 3 people attached to each project, broadly speaking. I hope that answers the question.
Question from Ben Morrill. If talent is established in a TV space, could this fund be used to help them transition to film? Yeah, this could absolutely fund a lab that is dedicated to transitioning people into film. 100%.
Can you run a script-focused program that accepts writers who are capable emerging writers, but don't have a community attached producers or directors agent, often in part because of regional disparities or being part of an unrepresented group? Some of the aims would be to help emerging directors and producers discover these writers and get pitch packaging ready. Thanks for that question. Yes, I think with the caveat that we're wanting to make sure we're not repeating activity happening within BFI network, so within the Early Development Fund. So if you're bringing together a program which has many elements that don't happen within early development, because you're bringing in market information, you might be bringing in information around audiences, international reach, etc. It's a structured program that's going beyond what early development offers. You could apply with the focus that you've mentioned. And yeah, we recognise that because of things like regional disparities, you've mentioned that programs will be targeted differently and shaped differently in different places, and that's okay.
Can organisations, production companies, individuals involved in running the program jump in as producers, execs once the program starts? I think if you mean that, I think beyond the scope of the program, then that there would be scope to do that, but that's not the idea. The idea is that you have projects that you're not necessarily producing, because otherwise that then qualifies really as a slate. James, would you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think that's right. So it depends what you mean by jumping as producers, execs once the program starts. We'd look for, when a project comes into the program, for you to relate to it as the delivery organization for the creative development program, and then the program finishes. Your project's then out there in the market. If you wanted to then pick it up and negotiate the terms with the organization, with the team involved, that's fine, but it can't happen during the program itself. And that's, yeah, it's to do with us wanting to make sure that there aren't too many obligations being placed on the teams taking part as a condition of them taking part in the program.
Participants are being paid for their time, but if writers are developing their draft throughout the scheme, is it an issue if they're not getting paid for that, particularly for first features? If you are saying they have to have a first draft already, one would presume they will want to develop that across the program, but changes to a script is a lot more work than changes to a treatment, which second or third features may be doing. If we're saying the development work is unpaid, the reality is that lots of people write without any support, and so that is just a reality. So obviously, what happens on the program, the point is that people are paid for their time to be on that program, and so therefore it would be up to, if there's a producer attached already to the project, or a part of the lab is to get a producer attached, that would then be up to them to see if they can raise money for the writing. But the reality is that for lots of people, especially writing their first, that often that bit is not yet funded. But the point is that this program is to accelerate the development, the professional development experience and the project development, in order that you stand a better chance of raising money elsewhere. So at the very least, that the program can support people earning something for attending and something for project development, but there's not enough money, obviously, to cover full script fees. And so you could apply to any number of other funds at the point at which you're ready to do that. And so then it's up to the individual writer and perhaps their representation to decide what work they do or don't do throughout the process.
Thanks, Mia. We've got about 7 minutes left, and we've had a lot of questions in, which is brilliant. We're not going to be able to get to them all, but we'll do a few more, and then yeah, we can take them via email at the Creative Challenge Fund address, which is on the slide, for anything that doesn't get answered. Question from Michelle Bernard: can the project start with larger groups and whittle down over time? Start with 15 projects, come down to 3. Is the idea that all participants stay on the whole programme? So that's something you could propose in your application to us. We haven't got a rule against that kind of structure. I think we'd look for ensuring that there's a meaningful experience for all of the projects that are involved. So yeah, and avoiding perhaps creating an overly competitive structure as well. So it would be about the experience of the teams involved throughout that process. So yeah, I think if you are interested in that kind of structure, if you could consider the impact on all of the participants and make the case for why you'd look to do that whittling down, that would help us consider it when it comes into us.
Is there guidance for the percentage that can be allocated to overhead, e.g. 10% for admin staff and office space not covered by staff day rates delivering the programme? Yes, that's in the guidelines, isn't it, James?
It is, yeah, exactly. There's a cap on the amount that you can request for that, but yeah, have a look at the guidelines for the information. Okay, how much detail do you need of the specific names of who would deliver specific sessions in your labs? Or do you just need an overall idea of the lab and the name of the overall experienced lab leader running it? Good question. This might not be that satisfying an answer, but we're looking for as much detail as you can provide at point of application. Totally recognise that each session won't have been scheduled, that you won't have practitioners for every session, and that's fine. But we would look for a level of detail that provided a convincing plan for how you want to populate your programme with different practitioners, different contributors. So just an overall idea of the lab and the name of the lab leader running it wouldn't be for the programme. It will guide you through the amount of information you're requested, and yeah, it will go beyond the overalls. But yeah, we know that there'll be implementation work that happens after we have chosen programmes to fund, where the absolute detail will get nailed down then.
Next question. BFI Network doesn't support debut projects to attach directors, additional finance or costs. So why is this something that needs to be in place for debut projects going through these labs? Particularly thinking about filmmakers from underrepresented groups who are often only supported at a very early stage, but with little support, further support available. The point is that for debut filmmakers, that actually, if you've had that support initially, then these labs could be a place where you go next. So if you're at the stage where the project is somewhat developed and then you need to then attach directors, additional finance, find a producer or cast, absolutely these labs could be relevant to you. It's just to stop the double up of very early development stage work for debuts, particularly just because that is provided, whereas actually support for people a bit further on, or sometimes developing second and third features who may not yet have funding, those provisions are not satisfied or offer currently within the BFI environment, and that's so it's satisfying that gap. So it's just so we don't double up.
Thanks. I think this is going to be the last question. Hello again, Annabelle. Nice to have you here. Is there a deadline by which activity has to start? So do first round projects have to start or end in this current financial year? We haven't put that into the guidelines. Once we close the fund on the 5th of December, as you can see on the slide here, it will take us time to do the assessment and then choose the successful organisations, and that will happen kind of December, January, February time. So it's most probable that activity will be starting early on in the coming financial year, the funded programmes themselves. Okay, I think that's our last question.
Wonderful. So just to reiterate that if you want anyone else to watch this will be available on our website, and please, if you have any questions that haven't been covered or you want us to drill down, please email us on the Creative Challenge Fund at bfi.org.uk. And thank you very much for coming. It's great to see so many people and so much interest. Thank you, James, for doing this with me.
Thank you, Mia, and thank you, everyone. And we'll look forward to receiving your applications.